Clint,
Colette,
happy 2025.
Happy New Year.
How's it going?
Oh, just trying to get logged back in everything.
And also, I know this, you were sick over, you
Yeah,
were supposed to take an epic trip
oh
and
my
you
God,
did
yeah,
not take your epic trip.
exactly. Yeah, we're still going to take the epic trip.
Okay.
We booked things in the way where there's just change fees and a few prepaid meals lost. But yeah, we were going to go to Fiji and Australia for Christmas. And instead we went to the flu and whooping cough. So
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah. Super fun, not fun. But we're all well now. It was just bad timing. We got it like as the trip was about to start. So we were like, do we just fly sick? No, that's not okay. And then one by one, each person got sick. And so I was like, no, cancel, reschedule. But
I'm sorry.
we are well now.
I'm glad you're well. I'm
And
glad
we
everybody's well.
still had a nice Christmas at home and a New Year's. And actually, my boys skied in the Snow Summit Torchlight Parade for New Year's Eve, which is incredible. So my teenage son and my 12-year-old son skied down a mountain in the dark with a road flare. It is a spectacle. You can just go search videos
Google
of
it.
it. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, very amazingly proud of them. But we had a nice time. How was your holiday season?
It was blissfully quiet. Except for one chicken related incident drama, which let me,
You're gonna have to explain that one.
so normally I let the chickens free range. So for those of you who don't know, I have chickens. It was still thing that after I graduated from Lund, I told myself my reward was going to be that I was allowed to have chickens. And so we have a coop. I have 11 chickens of 5 different varieties.
I'm just learning this, by the way. That's amazing.
Oh, really? You didn't know that?
I didn't know about your chickens.
So they're about 5 months old now. So the hens are due to start laying. Probably they'll start laying in about a month. And I have one rooster, I think. And I don't know if I should say that on a podcast because I think I'm not allowed to really have roosters. But but it's like you don't really know if you ever it's hard to tell, And so
until they start making noise in the morning.
I really like him. He's very beautiful. And now I like him even more. And I will tell you why. Because over the winter break, normally I let them out while we're getting ready in the morning with the kids, and I'll go out, I'll let them out, I'll refresh their water, deal with their food, and come back in and watch them. We have a sliding door we can see out in the back. And I'll watch them and make sure they're okay. And then before we take the kids into school, we let them back in. Well, of course, 2 weeks kids know in school, I've been sort of they love it outside. I'll let them free range for 3 hours, And, keep an eye on them here and there, not fully, but not as supervised and not as diligent. And lo and behold, a few days ago, I go outside to put them back in the coop, and I'm like,
no chickens
go. It's totally quiet. It's eerily quiet. And I'm like,
oh,
what is going on? So I find my dumbest, prettiest chicken. She's just sitting in a pile of leaves, and she's fine. She's just sitting there. And I pick her up and I put her in the coop, and I'm like, what is going on? And out of the corner of my eye, I see tussling. And my rooster is rolling around in the dirt with a hawk.
Oh my God.
And so I chase the hawk off, and my rooster has blood coming out of his beak. And I'm like, is that the rooster's blood? Is that the hawk's blood? What's going on?
Oh my gosh.
So I'm running around with the rooster, and I'm trying to see if he's been hurt or whatever. And I see a pile of feathers in a circle on the ground, and I'm like, oh, I've lost at least a chicken, right? I definitely lost one.
Man.
And then I end up finding 3 other girls, so that were kind of in the area, right? So I've take everybody back to the coop. The rooster's fine. He seems fine. And I put everybody in the coop, and they're all in a little shock. They're very but they're okay. But there's 6 chickens missing. And I'm like, can a hawk really get 6 chickens?
Wow.
All day. This is at 9 a.m. My mother was around, so she went and looked around the neighborhood. My husband and I looked around the neighborhood. Everybody's looking around. We're looking for 6 chickens, and it's they vanished into thin air. And I'm thinking, wow, a hawk can get 6 chickens? Like, that's impressive. Uh, again, thought for sure he got at least 1. And I go out at like 4 p.m. to give some treats to the rooster and check on him. And lo and behold, the little chicken walks up to the door of the chicken coop. And I'm like, oh, well, there's 1. So we've got 6 now. I'm like, that's great. And they heard I had the treat bag in my hand. And so they heard me giving treats, and out of over the ridge come 5 chickens at sundown. They just like all come in a line
They
towards me, like
scattered.
did not lose a single chicken thanks to my rooster. What a badass. Love him.
Wow.
They don't have names yet. Now my mom was like, you have to name them. So
You definitely have to name the rooster.
yeah, he deserves it.
That's awesome.
That's
Well,
my
that
chicken
was
story.
quite a resilient bunch of chickens that you have there.
Yes. Resilience by way of rooster. He knows what he's doing. And it makes sense. Like, my dumbest chickens were easily findable. And the other 6 were definitely the smartest. I would have deemed them the smartest even before this. They disappeared the whole day. Didn't come back until
Yeah, like, I'm
nighttime.
not coming out. I don't care what you do. Man, not until it's dark. I can hide.
So yeah, that was our drama. Chicken drama. Love it.
Well, I'm glad all your chickens were okay. And I'm glad you
Yeah.
have chickens. That's amazing. That sounds really fun.
It's really nice. It's a nice thing for the kids to do. And it's nice to, like, I don't know, we sit in front of computers all day, right? It's like nice to go outside and take a walk and hang out with a bunch of weird looking small dinosaurs.
Sometimes you just got to touch grass.
Yeah.
Or snow for me. It's usually snow.
So, we've been dipping our toe a little bit into like AI discussions. I have a feeling we're in for a little bit more AI today. I think that's okay. I think we're trying. Our goal is to represent resilience engineering and software and talk to people about it. AI is happening whether we like it or not, Clint, and we're going to have to talk about it.
I feel like I'm just being dragged into it, and I don't want. I want to be excited about it. Actually, and I do try to play with it, and as a technologist, like, I want to be that person who's already looked at it when the family asks, like, what's this AI thing? And I am struggling not to like turn my nose up a little bit and be like, "Oh, never replace us SREs. Like, we're special." And I don't just say that, by the way. I wrote a piece of fiction. I haven't published it yet. Someday I plan to, maybe, a sci-fi book where one of the premises is that most people aren't working anymore, but the SREs have been enslaved by the AI and are still keeping it running because they realized they couldn't keep it themselves running. So it's just a self-aggrandizing little piece of that fiction. Oh, of course.
I can't wait to read that.
Someday when I finally finish editing it. It's been 2 years. Editing is hard.
It is. We have a question from a reader. I want to remind everybody again. Clint and I, we are pretty busy, so we could do other stuff. But if you keep sending in questions, we can keep doing this podcast. So if you want to send in questions, we would love that. You can send us questions at thisisfinepod.com or thisisfine.software@gmail.com. You can write us questions. You can write us comments. You can send us insults. I'll read it all. I'm down. And
no question is too small. Like,
and this
bring
question
it on.
came in. This question came in, and we decided we thought it was a really good opportunity to invite our friend Steve McGhee to join us. So I'm going to introduce Steve. Steve McGhee was an SRE at Google for over a decade in Android, YouTube, and cloud. Now, as a reliability advocate, he helps companies to build robust, reliable systems with resilient, sustainable teams in the cloud. Nice use of resilience there, Steve. He is also the host of the Google SRE podcast. So we're doing a little bit of podcast.
Go check it out. If you like
switches.
this podcast,
Yeah,
you'll like
please
that
definitely
one.
check it out.
Prod, P-R-O-D, Prodcast. Very clever.
Google SRE Prodcast. All right. Welcome, Steve. How's it going?
Going good. Just got off break, so I'm doing great.
Yeah. Uh, how was your re-entry into the world of computers today?
Pretty good. I feel like I was practicing being retired for 3 weeks, and like I'm for it. I think it's a good idea. I think everyone should just stop working and just chill out. It seems like a much better plan.
You get any
Uh,
rounds of golf in, or
No golf. Did a lot of things around the house and like reading. Like was that was my level of engagement. It was great.
Nice. Nice. Um, I always love coming back from work and contemplating what it would be like to not have to work. I listened to a podcast this morning. Chris Hayes has a podcast. Is he still on MSNBC? I don't
he's
know.
still there? Yeah.
But he has a podcast, which I didn't know about. And then somebody links me to it because he interviews people who did a study. So, research nerd alert on people who receive basic income, like $1,000 a month for 3 years. And he talks out to the authors of the study and he goes into all these details. And I was thinking like, yeah, what if you just didn't have, what if we all just got a bunch of money? Like, who is it that the people who run AI think that we're going to do? It's like, oh, humans won't have to work because AI will be doing all of our work and we'll just have universal basic income and we can, have optimized lives to our heart's content. And that's what I think about on Monday morning when I go back to work after a holiday. When is that world happening? When can I
According
get that?
to Werner Vinge, not for a while. Like or is it? No, sorry, Ian M. Banks. Right, he talks about the post-scarcity society.
Yeah.
Like we got a while. I think.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to conquer interstellar space first. Then we'll be ready at that point. So I think we got a little time.
Oh wow, interstellar space comes before AGI. Like I don't know,
somewhere around the
because that's AI seems to think like next week will
fuzzy.
this all stop working, right? Like their new O3 model.
Yeah,
it's got it covered.
Should be fine. What could possibly go wrong?
How long you got?
Well, and this brings me to our wonderful reader question today, right? Which is, which I think is a really useful, cocktail party question to have. It's a good, you can get anybody talking about this these days, but they asked us, they said, Company X says that resilience is their product and I can buy it. What say you? And so that's the reader question we're going to talk about with Steve today. I'm really excited Steve's with us. Steve, do you think that Google has bought resilience? I mean, that's an interesting question. Google had all the money in the world for a really long time.
Yeah,
Could they buy resilience?
We're pretty good at AI stuff too.
Yeah.
That's not how resilience works inside of Google. I'm afraid it's not run by overlords made out of, I don't know, regurgitating word bots. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's AI as a tool. It's fine. It's getting better. Cool. A+. Good job, everybody. Like it's a thing, but it is in no way like the silver bullet. Like we talk about silver bullets because they're fictional. Like let's not keep pretending like they're products. I understand that people will try to sell things that are made out of silver bullet material. That's their thing. Cool, go for it. But like just there's a lot of terms to evoke here about snake oil and things like that. But like often when it's like when someone uses an ambiguous term to sell a specific product, it's like they're really just trying to not define the term. Like we're if they were selling something like more like specific and like solved a tangible problem, they might talk about how it solves the tangible problem more specific terms. But if they're couching it every time in something like, don't worry about it, it's a black box that just does abstract term, that just sends off like all the red flags in my head. So yeah, like that the high level question, like I don't, rolling one's eyes isn't great for podcasting. Like it doesn't really come across in an audio medium, but like that's the first thing that happens when I hear that query. And I'm thinking that's what the question asker was going for. Like this feels like a hot take bait. And you got it. But like,
Starting the new year fresh.
yeah, why not? Let's do it. So I don't want to go out and say like, AI does nothing or anything. Like it does a lot of cool stuff, and it is surprising, and it's getting better and all those things. But like, like any SRE knows, like you see a graph that's going up and to the right, like do not expect it to go up and to the right forever. Like that is a bad plan. Like there's these things called plateaus, like stuff levels off after a while, and you can't predict when that leveling off happens, right? When you have an exponential curve, like it might be a sigmoid in an hour, right? Real quick. You don't know when that's going to happen. So
And
I'll
you
always
can't
be
predict when
aware.
it dips either, right?
Yeah, afraid not. So
I think it might be helpful here too to I always, I get really annoyed. I promise less than 2 hours getting annoyed at people on LinkedIn over break, but I definitely spent some time getting
yeah,
annoyed with people on LinkedIn
I get
over
it.
break. And it's really just about how people use words. And resilience is one of those words where, I've been to conferences where speakers are throwing it around and I like hold my tongue because everybody's trying, we're all doing
Yeah.
our best. But I think it's worth it to dig into and ask what does one mean by resilience? Right?
Yeah. Good question. Like, and this is the problem with words and humans, right? Like, we all have different little worlds in our heads, and the words that only exist in that world in our head have changed over time. So unless like we went to the same school and lived in similar bubbles for a long time, we probably have different meanings for a lot of words. Maybe not like apple, but like more obscure words like resilience are gonna deviate between people, or diverge, maybe is a better word. See, I just did it right there. Like
Yeah.
the words are hard, but like I've fallen victim to this as well, where like I feel like I want to police people's words because I'm a pedant, right? I'm a member of the society. But like my role for a long time has been like kind of an externally facing reliability person within Google Cloud, and that doesn't help. Like specifically coming from a big company that's been doing this for a long time, to come in and say like you're using the word wrong comes across real bad. And so I've learned very quickly to not do that, but instead just to listen to what it is that they're trying to come up with, like what it is that they're trying to get across, like what do they mean by this, and then just offer more context if there's an opportunity, and try to make it into a learny thing, which is I'm sure what you want to do as well. But it's really easy to slide into that, like, don't you mean, or, finger waggy behavior. And it's really important for me, at least, to hold myself back from doing that, because
Yeah.
people just shut down when you do that. And it's not, no, it doesn't help anyone.
No one likes to be judged.
Yeah.
I have
Right.
like Inigo Montoya in my head, right? Like you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it
Yeah.
means. And it's like, okay, well, let's step back and define what we mean by resilience. Because for me, that's probably how I would respond to a company, right? That came to me and said, "Hey, we're selling resilience as a product." I'd be like, "Cool. What do you mean by that?"
I'm just going
What
to
does
word the
that
entry
mean?
now. I'm sorry, Colette. I have to. That was Vizzini.
Whoa.
Not
No,
Inigo Montoya.
Vizzini said inconceivable, and then Inigo Montoya said, "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you
That's
think it
fair.
means."
That's fair. That's fair.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable that I would get that wrong.
But yeah, that's kind of how I don't know, how I would start by responding.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like these products right there, as far as I know, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. You should correct me if I'm wrong. You both probably know more about this than me, actually. But like the products that I have seen on the market, they're like runbook automation, like at their basic level, right? It's like restart this instance, like
Yeah.
check these things in my observability, deck, and automatically run what like a first incident responder person would run.
Yeah.
As like the basic steps to this thing, right?
Yeah. And I'm not against like helpful automation that can be like managed by a team and like have a feedback loop and everything, like stuff that speeds up your team in a way that isn't just like blind, do what the black box says. Like there's totally a place for that. But when people are like saying the phrase resilience in like their product pitch, it sounds a lot to me like and this wasn't that long ago, like when you would see the phrase auto healing in places, like it's the same idea. And, I hated that term too. And I still hate that term, but it's like, it's just marketing. Like someone in marketing thought this was great and it would sell, and they were right. Like people do buy it because of words, even though those words are misleading. And like, unfortunately, the in my twisted mind, like the part of the role of marketing is to be misleading, is to lead you towards something that has some value. It doesn't have the full value of the word as it might be in your head, but it's, it's this abstract. I think the other thing that you see a lot with these companies is like, they have a product that does X and they're like, but we don't want to constrain ourselves. Like, what's a box that's bigger than the thing that we actually do today? Because like, we might blossom into this giant thing later and we have all these great ideas. So like, let's have a bigger word than what it is that we actually do. And we'll put that on the front page. So that way we don't need to like get a new website next year when we have the new great thing that we're totally going to build by this time next year. So I think some of it is just like
generous with that. I'm sorry, Zia, I thought you were done. I think you're being very generous in how they're selecting that word. I think they're going to Google and saying, what are people searching for?
Well,
hey, like what's the popular term that's selling in our market today?
Absolutely.
And resilience is having a day. Like it's having a year. Like we were reliability as a service. Now we're resilience as a service.
It is cooler sounding for sure. Right.
Yeah. And it sounds so much bigger. Like you're saying, they are saying it's sounding bigger, but I always like when I see companies making shifts and things, I always think like, what pop culture thing that's going on right now and that's driving those summary sales conversations between the deciders and the users is driving that like product manager went, you know what, this isn't working anymore. Let's be resilient now.
Yeah. The other person or like, character to imagine is the purchasing agent, right? So, the new CIO, CTO, head of operations or whatever, who just joined the team 9 months ago and is like fresh and cool, will be like, what we should do instead is resilience, right? Because that's new. And that's why I get the promotion 3 months from now or 6 months from now or whatever. Like it is like, this is all part of the game, right? Like getting the new thing, even if it's not real or if it's not different or not actually the word, like this is how these things play out in the market. And it sucks. No one likes it, but I mean, I guess some people like it, but I don't like it. But we have to know that it's happening to make sense of what we see around ourselves. Otherwise we just get mad and we become pedants for the sake of pedantry, and we don't actually get anywhere with it. But I in my experience, like what I've been doing for like my job is to try to like get teams further afield, right? Like help them actually get better. And some of that is just like, just please ignore these words for a while. Like it'll settle down later. But like in the meantime, what can we do to actually help you? And that I think is more a better use of time, is saying like, get past the words, look at what they're actually doing and see if you actually need that. See if you think it actually works. If not, move on. Just like put a pin in it, come back in a year with that. Maybe this company, maybe they're onto something, and maybe their tagline just sucks, right? They're not actually expressing themselves very well, and let them figure it out. You don't have to be their first customer, right? Let them become like pretty successful, and you can wait until we're past the gap of mediocrity or whatever it's called, and then you can adopt the thing, and it'll be much cooler.
But I mean, so my counter to that, I bring you DevOps, which
I've heard of it.
We
Yes.
did let that go and let it turn into all of the weird, warped crap that people were selling that they slapped DevOps on. And now DevOps is like totally meaningless, right? So it's not that the term came back to its original meaning or that like some kind of clarity won out in the end. It's like it became meaningless. And with resilience engineering, I guess my question is like, we in the academic field of resilience engineering, we have very clear definitions of what resilience means, right?
Yeah.
Resilience is the adaptive capacity of any system, right? And by adaptive capacity, what we mean is essentially people, right? People are the things and systems that stretch. And it's also about planning for the unknown unknowns, which you cannot pre-program into your run book, my friend, right? Like you cannot know ahead of time what a run book managing an unknown situation, an unanticipated situation
Yep.
should do without a human in the loop. And so to me, it's very important, like when I use the term resilience, that I am accurate and precise in that. I understand that can seem pedantic. I understand that that has like, research and scientific undertones to it. But I fear that if we let it go, that if we let it, boomerang out there, that it will never come back. Is that fear unfounded?
It's not unfounded. I would suggest that DevOps didn't have the same backbone. There wasn't a DevOps, school of I don't want to say school of thought, but research background, especially in multiple fields like that is happening with resilience. So I would be slightly less worried about the DevOpsification of this. Like I don't see this having quite as much of a explosion into nothingness that DevOps has had. But
I think DevOps tried.
It is a good. I mean, I'm not saying don't give up. Or, I'm not saying to give up. Right. You should still fight the fight a little bit. But it's a reasonable position for you to hold. But I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it. In my opinion, purely out of that reason alone, is that there's a lot of published material. It has shelf life already, and it has multiple industries to look towards as well. Whereas DevOps was just like, what we've been doing? Let's do that again, but in a different way. I don't know. That's a bit of a
I
take.
appreciate your position, Steve, but I will never underestimate the ability of the software industry to abstract things.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been doing this whole time.
We're really good at taking stuff off the shelf from industrial control theory and turning it into our weird queuing algorithms and saying, that's the same thing, right? No.
Yeah.
I agree with you that resilience has a much better research pedigree and history and application in multiple industries. DevOps was bringing some ideas of constraint theory into the sort of undefined world that we had at the time of tech ops. There was like tech ops and operational. Like I remember that moment where we were all like, we're not special, right? Are we special? And I think DevOps was like a first attempt to say, yes, we're special, but only in these ways. And then it went all crazy. But there were some materials, right? There was like the DevOps handbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it tried to define what it was. It was almost too late. I feel like there was a momentum that I don't see resilience building as fast as DevOps did. SRE built this momentum too. And it felt like because you had the SRE book at the beginning, it stayed at least a little bit in its lane. It still has grown all these weird undefined tendrils, but there's a core. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is with a word like resilience, where it could mean a lot of things, we're saying, no, it means that one. And there's a lot behind
the other
thing
to point at with regards to both resilience and SRE. So I know SRE a lot because I'm there, right? There was the book, there were several books, but there was the one book that kind of like kicked it off to the world. But also there were like literally thousands of people doing that job that had a really kind of good understanding of what it meant. Most of them still worked at Google, but a lot of them didn't. A lot of them had moved on to other companies. And now, by this point, way, way, way more have gone through the machine of Google SRE and like have been able to spread what SRE means to them out off to these other companies. They've been able to like point at the book a little bit and be like, not like that exactly, but also more like this and blah, 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 blah. And so like, lo and behold, it comes back to the people, right? It's the sense of, when we're defining a group of people, like a role of SREs or resilience engineering, if you don't have a bunch of people that already kind of get it, and you try to just sort of throw it out to the masses with like a bunch of words on some books and like some talks and like some websites, and like you're gonna one of those is gonna have a much better landing, and it's gonna be the one that has like the actual community that like already agrees with themselves, even if they can't exactly enunciate it perfectly all together all at once. At least they've all done the job together and they've seen it successful. And so that way, when they see something else, they're like, well, not quite that. Like, hang on, like, let's back this up a little bit. Anyway, that was too philosophical, even for me. Does that make sense, though? Like, I don't know. That's my off the cuff theory.
I think so. I mean, I think what you're saying is that there's community, like the power of community
Yes.
for this can trump the fly by night VC backed, frenzy over the term's meaninglessness, right? Like that if we have a community, if we have a structure, if we have a way of engaging with it meaningfully, and we do it in like, again, like I know I went off on like what my definition of resilience is based on resilience engineering, right? I can still make fun of that. I don't need that to be the case every time someone has a conversation with me. I'm not going to correct them, like, because I'm not an asshole, or I try not to be. I would also ask that of our community, right? Let's try not to be assholes when we when we advocate for resilience engineering, because there's enough of that elsewhere.
Yeah, we also don't want a chilling effect too, right? We don't want people to be afraid to try things and get them wrong, right? And say like, look, I'm doing resilience, and we're like, no, you're not certified by the resilience agency of whatever. Like that's no good either. So we don't want to allow people to try these things out and get them wrong, and then have a community of like warm people to say like, I know what you're trying to do, let me offer some advice, or have you tried it this way, or something like that. Because like one of my kind of main kind of like reasons for doing this type of work is I think like we're only going to keep doing this more and more and more and more, and it's going to become more and more important, and it's going to be harder and harder. Like a decade from now, I don't know how much of the world's going to be governed by these systems and how reliable they are going to be, right? Like if it's more important and more people are using them and they're not that reliable or whatever, like, is that good? Like, and it's going to get harder to do so. Like, so Clint, you sort of joked about abstractions, but like, this is how we've been doing this whole, like that actually is the right answer is abstraction, right? You want to have more powerful ways of doing things via abstractions. Like, I don't know a lot of people that are writing assembly code anymore. Like you could, it would just take a little while, right? And so having the ability to do some things in an abstract way that end up having like a large amount of leverage is the only way to do more of this better over time. Like if you want to have like a ragtag bunch of rebels that are actually like achieving something big across a large landscape, because like some of these systems span the globe, you have to have these abstractions in place. I'm not advocating for AI governing these things at all. I'm just talking about programming abstractions, like writing software, right? If an AI helps you write some software along the way, be careful, sure, whatever. But like at the end of the day, we still need to have like a lot of people operating these things with the right models in their heads. Not perfect. They're never going to be perfect. We know they're just models, but we don't want them just doing it by the seat of their pants. Like we want to offer some help along the way. That's the only way this is going to keep working. It's a little dour, I know, but
no, I agree with it. And you used a word that I think I've been trying to like reach for it while we've been talking about it, which is leverage. And this started with a question about products that are being sort of sold using resilience as center of the sales process. And I think we all are a little dubious about that.
Sure.
But there's something that can come from supporting that if it's done the way that we feel is beneficial, which is companies in that space, little startups, can be a point of leverage. Yeah. It can be like, look, you don't have to do it all yourself. Like one of the things that I worry about whenever I talk about resilience engineering, it's hard to talk about anyway for folks, because it's like where to start. It's so much easier to start if you're like, well, hey, have you tried product X? That's got resilience as its core mission. Like I want that experience. I haven't seen this product, by the way. I'm just imagining it. So attention VCs, like please fund this if it comes to your door. But like we're a team is saying, we're going to start with resilience, but we're actually going to solve these problems that people have while they're doing resilience. I want that product. I'm going to buy that product. It may already exist. But what I don't want is the other way, where it's like, we are the resilience product. So I want that leverage because it helps me, even if we don't buy that product, it helps me explain And it helps people like contextualize it like, oh, well, we're not going to buy that, but we have actually built things that are like that and we can use it.
Well, and when I think about products where resilience would be the product, it is enhancing operator knowledge. It is making it easier to create and update and maintain systems diagrams that allow conversations to happen. It is, allowing a group to do stamp or some kind of, systems analysis in an easier, more like user-friendly way, right? Those are the kinds of things I think about when I think about what could resilience as a product look like, or giving people more headspace or headroom by automating some sort of toil-based tasks of operators, right? Giving them some headspace or headroom or ability to look at things in a way that allows them a new, fresher perspective on the systems that they're trying to operate.
I think the term I would be happier with would be like resilience aware or resilience adjacent or something like that. Like solving problem X via resilience, right? Like with resilience in mind is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Like if you can express to me that you understand that resilience is its own thing, that it involves humans, that it's not just like the automation of the one simplest, path that you thought about yesterday. It's like, it's actually quite, complex. And with that understanding, you're now going to attack this problem and solve this one problem out there. I'm there for you. Like, that would be great. If you say that I'm going to just solve resilience or something like that, then you're like, no, like you lost me. Like, clearly, like we need to work on words, like you were saying at the beginning of this. But so maybe there's actually just maybe it's up to us, right, to come up with this term of art to say, like, if you're going to build a product that is in this space or using this space, like, here's how you pitch it. Like, this would be a silly thing that Google does for their internal training, like for like training about like, being, aware of your coworkers, like the kind of HR training stuff that you have to do at every company. The training that they always use is this thing called G-Shoe. And it's just like a stupid made up product. And it's like the Google shoe that like tracks your steps or something like that. And it's just like, it's entirely just like a jokey product just so that they can have these silly discussions. So, but like maybe it's up to us to come up with like the example, like fake product that tracks the number of steps that you take during an incident or something like that. Or I don't know, something silly, but then show like how you would actually talk about your product and what, capabilities it would have to have in order to like assist in a resilience way of thinking, as opposed to the anti-product, which is like doesn't involve these things and doesn't include these things and like casts blame on people and shuts things off and reboots them blindly and whatever. I don't know.
Or just takes all the people out of the equation. I think that's the one that is like scaring us in the AI one, is like, you won't need resilience people anymore. Right.
Well, and I think that's a radical thing, right? Is like resilience already exists in your organization. So if a leader came to me and said, hey, this salesperson contacted me and they are a friend from high school and they're telling me they can sell us more resilience, I would be like, I'm looking for products that enhance the resilience we already have. Like that's the thing. So how do you identify and enhance? And that's ultimately what resilience engineering is all about. So if somebody's selling a product that can identify and enhance points of resilience in the organization, like, cool, I'll take their demo call. That's not permission to message me on LinkedIn. So if you aren't actually doing that.
So many connection requests.
Good luck with that.
Oh my God. I love that description, by the way, because one of the things that I'm worried about in resilience too, and I think we should talk about it a little bit, is the buying side of it. If I like, that is one thing I've had these conversations a little bit as you go up the chain. People are more and more busy and they want this just to be a line item, and they're okay with hiring if that's part of the equation. But we always like we need to speak to the people who spend the money. Yeah. We always need to. And products are a much easier conversation than hiring and practices and long transformations. So if we can find a product that is going to help identify the resilience in an organization and help promote them. Like attention products, I do think you should contact us, and we will mention you in a future episode if you feel like you do that. Because I think I haven't seen any. I've seen things that are adjacent and things that are definitely helping with resilience. But what you just described is something now I want it.
Yeah, a lot of this is educating the purchasing agent as well. I've spoken to a lot of big and medium and small size companies about this stuff. And the one line that I use to like kind of as like a litmus test for this type of thinking is if you have someone on your team who pushes a change to production and it has this big bad outcome and they immediately fix it and they're like, whoa, my bad, I fixed it, right? And I also figured out how to like prevent it, so like we're good. Like in my opinion, like perfect response, right? But like I don't say that part. I just say like this happened, right? So person did this thing, and I say, scratch, freeze frame. You're the manager. What do you do with this person? What do you do? Like right now, what do you do? And we just go around the room and we talk about it. And when they start talking about, well, there needs to be a consequence, right? And there needs to be they don't say retaliation, but when they basically imply like this person needs to be punished, that's when I know like we need to have that discussion first. And that's like super, super common. And like you have to figure that out. Like this comes back to like what is the culture of the team, and maybe it's just the individuals, but maybe it's like a pervasive thing, right? So getting to the point where you understand like this stuff happens, so we can improve the system. It's not the person's fault. They actually did everything right at that moment, right? And blah, blah, blah. Like if you have these two archetypes in your head of the purchasing agent who answered like poorly and the person who answered well in this situation, you need to educate the person who has the power to buy a product to not buy the product that does like, auto firing of people who push the wrong button, right? Like not that would ever be sold, but like, it's less, we don't even necessarily need the perfect product. We also need to have the right buyers of the product too. We need to educate folks like that.
You say it will never be sold, but I want to point out, I was at Topgolf yesterday, and our server informed us that they have a scheduling tool that schedules them based on their customer reviews. So if you get a bad customer review, you get shitty shifts. Yeah. You get shittier and shittier shifts. So it's basically like a tool that manages you out of the org, essentially. Right. That is not resilience engineering, friends. That is the opposite.
That is late stage capitalism, folks.
Yep.
Yeah.
But like, how do we do this? How do we get these ideas into the brains of every IT admin on the planet, or whatever it is that their job is, right? Like everyone who's holding, the little yellow book. What is I just lost it. The IT, where like disaster recovery and stuff are defined for like giant IT organizations.
ITIL?
ITIL, thank you. The little yellow book of ITIL. Like, like there's a lot there. They have conferences. There's everything, right? There's a whole religion around this. And like,
we have to plug our noses and walk in the door.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. We need to be there.
Yep.
It's rough, but it needs to happen.
Yep.
This is where the trouble comes in talking about it. And I've seen this play out a few times. We're kind of not compatible. And that's a great opportunity, but we don't take it often because we do turn our noses up at ITIL. I do. I'm fully guilty of it. Oh, ITIL, right? Like, we were, I think even in a previous episode, somebody said, we were just fully ITIL. Ugh. And we all just agreed, ugh. But the reality is that calling out like, hey, ITIL compromises some parts of resilience in your organization because it does need these things to happen. And there's sort of requirement. And there are other compliance programs, I'm certain, that need those consequences to be there when in fact those are compromising their ability. Yeah. We absolutely have to be there, and we need products to get.
And you can't just shut it down. Like, I know I just did, but like, this is a safe space, right? We're cool. But like, if you're talking to folks and you're like, you do ITIL, like, ugh, get out of here. Like, we're not going to help you. Like, that doesn't work, right? There's like ITIL has trust me on this, it has worked. Like in the past, it has worked. It does work still for many companies. It doesn't work perfectly and it has a lot of problems. But like, if you say ITIL is the worst and doesn't work, like you're going to get a lot of people who just close the door on you. And they'll be like, it's working great over here. And because their definition of great is just different, right? Or their expectations are lower, or they're not looking at all the things, sure. But like being able to, again, push them forward, not shut down what they've done before and what they've spent a lot of time on, and they have, frankly, a lot of pride in accomplishing, is really, really important, especially when it comes to selling a product, right? It's really hard to insult someone and then have them give you money. It's very difficult, turns out.
I don't know.
I don't really know.
It's, that feels like some sales tactics are exactly that.
I mean,
negging is a sales practice.
Elon Musk sure is trying.
I know, right?
So there we go. Well, I guess, one question I have before we wrap it is, what would your ideal and we touched on this a little bit, but what would your ideal product selling resilience, like what would be the thing that you would be like, okay, I'll take that demo if someone showed up at your door, Steve?
I think if one of the first steps involved enumerating all the people on your team and what they have capabilities of doing, like ACLs wise, like what can these teams, what are the things that the teams can touch and who can touch what today, and what information, like kind of like I hate to say it, but like an ITSM almost, like we want to have like, or no, what is an ITDB? I don't know, like essentially like download like the snapshot of your people and what they can do to the system, and then what parts of the system can be affected by which people. Like you have to start with some understanding of that first before you do anything at all, in my opinion. Like if you just do this blindly and just be like, here's a graph and here's a thing, and just like give this to whoever you want, like you're inviting so many problems there. So just some awareness of like having a people-centric view of the org first, and then saying, now that we have like a bearing on like your org structure and who can do what, now we're going to assist these teams with these things and these teams with these things. And then you can change that over time or something. So like some fluidity and some awareness of like both system and people, I think are like just table stakes. Like, I don't know what this imaginary product would actually do, but like having some awareness of those things, I think would be absolutely critical in my opinion. At least that would get me to not slam the door. Not that I'm any kind of purchasing agent anywhere, but that's fine.
What about you, Clint?
I actually have some I'm going to go out on a limb and mention specific products here, some of which actually I think would do well to adopt what you just said, Steve. One of them are good friends at Adaptive Capacity Labs. Just have to mention them. It is the hard road, right? We know that, but it is one that I think is beneficial to everybody who can take it. So I will just mention them by name. They're going to teach you things about this space. But from in terms of like products you can buy and put in people's hands, I have been a huge fan of Incident.io. And I'm sure there are other products that are doing something similar. It helps me with resilience because it just gives everybody the next step towards what I want. And we can, at a central level, sort of push them into the funnel of doing better post-incidents and just doing those little things that maybe don't make sense. It's a little reminder, like, hey, you haven't done it yet. And then it gives us a little dashboard that says, like, people are or are not doing post-incident stuff. That's helpful to me. The other one is a little bit off on the corner, but I think would do well. It does what Steve is describing, but it's not sold this way, which is Backstage. And it is meant, and having been a Spotify employee, I will say, and having used Backstage for years, if done right, and I don't know who has adopted it or not or whatever, but it does all those things for you. But they're not selling it that way, I will say. Like they're talking more about the development productivity and sort of that. But to me, it gives you the diagrams, it gives you the dependency mappings, it gives you the single pane of glass. All these things are actually resilience boosters. So attention, Backstage sales team, perhaps listen to Steve's soliloquy that he just delivered, and we will take your demos.
Can I share one of my favorite stories about helping a team with their resilience? So this was an unnamed, customer of the cloud that I work for. That doesn't really matter. They were building a system that worked, right? Like product worked, it's fine, but they were getting a big customer, and so because of that, they needed to like have a much higher level of capacity, right? And specifically, they had a customer. Their product had to do with like physical stores or like buildings, and they had a customer who had like thousands of storefronts or whatever it was that they were selling for, and so like to go online, like they would need it on like some point in the future, they'd have to have like 20x the capacity or something. So like good engineers, they were doing a load test, and guess what? It didn't work at load, right? So like the product worked fine, but the product did not work fine at load. And like, perfect. This is like an S3's like greatest dream. It was like, I can fix this, right? And so I went in and I talked to them a bunch and blah, blah, blah. They were able to kind of replicate it. And at the end of the day, it turned out that nobody knew how to use the monitoring system at all. Like there was one monitoring person, and that monitoring person was like, file a ticket, tell me what you want on the dashboard. And it was very much just like, no one was empowered to really understand the system. Like all the business logic was there, but something was off. So, fast forward a bunch of tickets and whatever. And like, we had to get like agents installed to like look at the Java stuff and blah, blah, blah. Because no one, like this was all written in Java, and there was no concept of we should look at the virtual machine for starters. Like, so anyway, end of the day, turns out they're running everything on Kubernetes, sure, but every node in Kubernetes was one very small machine. And so scheduling could only go so big. The pods could only get so big, right? And it turns out that they found a bunch of connection strings that were saying like, how many connections would you like to make to some backend service running in the cloud, some mega backend service, right? And they're like, all of them, infinity of them. Like clearly, if we're going to be big, we need to have a lot of connections. So what happened at the end of the day, the system ground to a halt, just swapping, right? Just doing connection management, and it never made any forward progress. Like it could do a little bit of forward progress on like, one store's worth, but as soon as you asked it to do anything else, it spent all of its time just dealing with its context switching. Okay, what resilience product would solve this problem? None of them, right? Like this is purely the operational and the software development team needs to understand that this problem is happening, and they just need to fix a bunch of code. Like at the end of the day, what we did is we changed the connection strings from a gazillion to one. Like every computer gets, at the end of the day, every core gets one connection to the backend, and like everything just started working and it was fine. And like there was a bunch of other problems too, but that was like really the main problem. I don't think an LLM is going to figure that out right now, right? Like I don't think this type, like there's so much context there, and there's so much understanding about what context switching is, and like a running system versus like a running at load system versus like that was like, I keep coming back to that example because like a good S3 will find that really quick, and they'll take a little time to like get it rolled out and blah, blah, blah. But like, I don't think there's a product that can find that answer for you. It's a collection of products. Like you have to understand the observability. The people have to be able to do it. They have to be able to make changes to it. Like it has to be relevant to the place they are in the market right now. Like there's so much, human work that needs to happen in order to overcome this problem. So, I'm going to state that as an unsolvable challenge. So good luck, product teams. Solve that problem. We'll see.
That's a great story, Steve. I love it. I'm going to sort of come back to the discussion about community that we had as a way to plug at the end the community that we are all a part of, which is the Resilience in Software Foundation, which was launched late last year, 2024. We are in a Slack together. Where we try to talk politely, kindly to everybody about resilience engineering. And the foundation is really devoted to advancing these concepts. If anyone who's listening is not already a member, you can become a member by going to resilienceinsoftware.org. We're a podcast that is sort of happens to be affiliated with that foundation just by virtue of the people who are doing the podcast. We need you to help us continue the podcast by sending us questions. You can do that at thisisfinepod.com, or email us at thisisfine.softwarepodcast@gmail.com. Someone very kindly sent me a note that our show notes weren't showing up properly in YouTube, so I'm gonna like try and do some editing work and go back there and make sure that they're showing up. But you can also just email us if you need some show notes sent your way. I'm happy to respond. So not going to give you an SLA on that response because I'm kind of busy with the foundation, but I'll try. And thank you so much, Steve, for joining us today. It was so great to chat with you. Dear reader who wrote us about resilience as their product, I hope we managed to fit in enough snark for you today. And also gave you a good little show. All right.
There were enough snark. Thank you for having me. Those were really fun.
Thanks for
Thanks, Steve.
chatting. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.